Now, here we go into part two of the controlled demolition, subtle hatchet job the media does when they want to destroy anyone that's looking into something that's going to expose what the true nature of how they operate is, right? It's a very, very cleverly done. So we're going to go play a bit more and we're going to pick it apart piece by piece again. So here we go.
Well, it could be dangerous, you know.
Correct.
There is no situation, I believe, where threats of violence.
I just finished on that one, right? Which she says no, there's no situation where she believes right now. She's putting her beliefs on, like her beliefs are actually now a truth, right? Because what she's doing, she's saying that well, we all agree that violence isn't okay. So what I'm saying is coming from a foundation, where there's neutral ground. So that's the way she sets it up. And while ignoring the fact that the police are the only ones who instigate the violence, right? Yet doesn't say anything about that. That's just totally left alone. So I finished off on that. So let's listen
on. Is appropriate. And I think that sort of gets hand in hand with it. But
it's a strange time. It is.
So she said that anyone who actually tries to represent themselves and show that there are things happening under the surface that people need to know about and how they're being controlled, that violence goes hand in hand with that, like they're now somehow responsible for that. Not that the police are. You see, it's very subtle, right? The way she frames it is that the ones who want to challenge the actual tyranny, they're the ones who are the instigators of the violence. The police are just doing their job, What they do is not violence. That's not violence because it's the right thing to do, right? That's what they're shaping. Right? As long as it's the right thing to do, it's no longer violence. So they have two terms and definitions for violence, right? One, if you're doing anything that challenges authority, that's violent. But if the ones in supposed authority are doing something that is violent, that's totally okay. That's natural behavior. There's no problem with that. That's what's being shaped here.
Strange.
We did chat to him and we've pre-recorded it.
Yes.
And that's because we did have to edit out some stuff that did not meet the codes of broadcast.
So right there, they're already telling you, right, what they're really doing. They're editing it, but what's the excuse? Because it didn't meet the codes of broadcast. That'd be funny because if you think about some of the things they broadcast, right, they talk about some really bent, twisted stuff on MSN, right? Things to do with children, what's okay and what's not okay, like all these different pronouns and, different gender stuff that's just all of a sudden materializing. It never existed in reality. And all of a sudden you've got these different versions of genders that just show up and they're totally valid. Like that somehow doesn't breach these broadcasting codes and stuff. Like that's totally okay. But anything else that doesn't fit with what we want you to know, well, that's a breach, right? So isn't it lovely to have that red card system that you can just pull out the red card anytime you like and say, no, that's out of bounds. That's what they're really showing you, right? That's how they operate. So then they're trying to make it like, it's not us, trying to shape a narrative, right? So here's the funny thing about the universe, right? Every time you lead with I don't or not, what actually you're saying after that is actually what you're doing. But very few people know that, right? When you use negative action language, the universe only hears the words that follow the negativity. So she's actually telling you what she is doing. That's the best part. But you need to understand how this works to be able to pick that apart.
So
you're very quiet over there, young man. No. What? No. I think it is interesting, and you're right. We need to hear from these people because I think, especially for me, I do watch a lot of the news, and I do know a lot of things about.
Okay, how good is this, right? This is an absolute rip snorter. This statement is a total cracker. So what does he say? He says, I do watch the news, right? Like whose news? Does he establish that, right? Most likely it's going to be the mainstream, which he's a part of, that he's pretending he's not. And now, if you watch the mainstream news, that is the source of authority of what is right and what is wrong. That's what he's being set up. And now he knows, right? It's not his belief. It's actually, he just has a place of knowing. Something that's universally discoverable is what he watches on the news. That's what knowledge means. Knowledge means something that's universally discoverable, right? We can all find it out. So he's now, making himself the arbiter of what is knowledge just in that statement, right? So if you're not paying attention, like I said, if you listen to the first one I did, right, you're just going to hear these as truths, right? And then they're going to be dropping into your biases anyway, because most of these people are in an echo chamber and they're just, recirculating what they want to believe. But anytime someone else has a challenge to that, then you're the one who's actually accused of doing the very thing that they themselves are doing, right? This is like the most insidious form of gaslighting that you're ever going to get, is because those who control the levers of power get to decide of what is right and what is wrong. That's what this exercise is really about. And so now what is he saying? He's saying, I get to know, everything I learned, that's very well scrutinized, right? No one ever challenges him on, well, hang on a sec, my friend. How do you get to define and decide and differentiate between the news that you get and actually how much of that is true? What's your actual mechanism by which you do that? Has anyone ever asked him that? So the one they're going to interview, right, that would have been a great way to lead in, because instead of him getting the bullets fired at him, he can just turn it back around on them. This is what we can do, guys. We can turn their questions back on them and say, well, here you are scrutinizing me of how I come to my conclusions. Well, let's have a look at yours and how you come to yours. What methods do you employ that are so much more superior? Let's hear it, right? They'd never do that.
Stuff. I've got no idea what a sovereign citizen is or how they operate. And the only way you're going to find how they actually do is to talk to one of them, because everyone else is going to have a skewed view on how they do it.
Oh, okay. So now what they're saying is, now that I get to define this individual as a sovereign citizen, right, that I am so altruistic, right, after defining somebody, that, everyone else is not me, I'm above what they do. They would have a skewed view, but me, I'm just in it for the curiosity. I'm just in it to learn. That's all I'm here for. I haven't used any prejudice or biases in any of my language here at all. I've not done any of that. I've just been totally open and curious, right? That's what he's laying out while he's doing the opposite, right? It's a walking contradiction right in your face. Because if you are really curious about someone, you would never put a label on them. As soon as you put a label on them, that curiosity is dead. This is all an exercise in ego and confirming an agenda. That's as soon as you chuck a label on someone, that's the first way to work it out, guys. Anyone who's curious never seeks to label anyone, ever. That's like the base principle. And what's missing here in this entire structure is that people do not understand principle. And because they don't understand principle, they fall for the traps, hook, line, and sinker without even realizing it's happened.
Correct. So you'll hear the chat that we've done. Like Abby said, some edits had to be made to this, not to change the narrative or anything.
There you go. He said some edits had to be made, not to change the narrative or anything. Remember, he led with a not. And so what did he really say? He said, yes, it was edited to change the narrative, because that's how it's done, right? The conscience will always give itself up, right? They always tell you what they're doing. It's the way that it's how you understand how the conscience works. As soon as you say no, it's what you're really doing. And they're so basically just owned up to it, that it is all to shape a narrative.
But just to go by the codes of practice at which we have to abide by here on commercial radio. His name is Dave Guru Graham, and he joins us.
So here they're going to ask him, right? And now listen, unfortunately, the one that's been interviewed, he does fall into a lot of traps here. So we're probably going to get through the first part because I'm going to run out of time to keep it in the time limit I want, and then I'll have to come back and do the other bit.
So, sovereign citizen, Guru, could you explain to us what that means?
Yeah, I certainly can. Sovereign citizen is an oxymoron. How can you be alive and dead at the same time? This is a name that the authorities have made up for us to put us in a category. So the word.
So unfortunately, he fell into the trap, and he said that this is a term the authorities have made up for us. So he's actually, without realizing it, he's actually claimed that title, right? Instead of just saying, this is a name or a title that's been invented to actually confuse people, because when you actually use words that are in opposition to each other, that is doublethink. And doublethink is a strategy of totalitarian societies, right? And so then you don't have anything to do with that. All you're doing is explaining information. And so he missed that opportunity to actually explain it like that. He actually drew himself in by saying us, that and attaching that label to him and anyone else who stands on principle or wants to challenge something that the majority don't want to look at. I reckon I'm going to run out of time or go past the limit that I want to keep it at. So I'll come back and carry on with the rest of it in the next one.